So hello
Cool.
everyone, my name is Patty. I'm from PentaQ. I'm here with Drew, or you can call him MidFeast, right? And is that
MidBeast, yeah.
MidBeast? Yeah, MidBeast, and he's actually doing some LPL co-streaming this year. So maybe tell me us a little bit about you and how you got into LPL.
Yep. So I'm Drew, also known as MidBeast. And yeah, I'm like a streamer. Like I do a lot of YouTube reviews, and I was invited to do the LPL co-streams this year, kind of just watch the games. It's kind of like, I guess a co-stream is like, I'm not really a commentator. I'm like a commentator over the commentators. So I guess it kind of just brings the Western audiences, like specifically my viewers, into the games. We can kind of throw a bit of banter, watch some of the good games, and I guess just get more exposure to the league that I think has so much potential, right? Because I feel like it deserves more viewers.
Yeah.
But over the years, like, I mean, the LPL viewership now is pretty good, but like I feel as though maybe 2 or 3 years back, it was kind of struggling there. Where a lot of the Western audience wasn't watching it. So yeah, the LPL kind of hit me up, said, hey, you guys want to watch the games? I'm like, hell yeah, free content. Get to watch the good mid laners. And yeah, the rest is history.
Yeah, so you were a mid lane player before you became kind of like a streamer, right? So you're very like the mid like the documentary or like the prime commentator for mid laners. And if people want to watch like mid lane, they would go to you.
Literally, yeah. So I played pro in Australia for a little bit. And then I kind of just slowly transitioned out of pro play. Like I kind of retired, and then I just made a YouTube channel where I just do videos analyzing the best players who are better than me. And I guess I could just fill the gap where beginners couldn't really understand like the breakdown, and I could maybe fill that gap in and kind of explain it to them in basic terms. So yeah, that's kind of how it kicked off.
Cool. So who do you think is the top mid laner at the moment?
The best mid laner in the world?
Yeah.
I think it's got to be it's got to be Chovy, I think, honestly, and from the LCK.
Any reason for that?
He's just so consistent. I just love his laning. I just think that when it comes to pure laning, like I know stats don't mean a lot, but they mean it. His stats are just so insane, you can't ignore them. So I definitely think Chovy has to be my number one. I watch him play very often in the LCK. And I know like a lot of people like to meme him and kind of like he's the CS guy. He just sits in lane and CSs.
Yeah.
But it's so much more than that when you verse these top players to get those leads. So Chovy would be my number one. I mean, there's plenty. I mean, it's so close at the top. There's plenty of good mid lane. You could say Showmaker, you could say Doinby. You could probably say Rookie recently been playing very well. There's heaps of top tier mid laners up in that top 5, top 10 spot that kind of could go back and forth from day to day. But yeah, I'd say Chovy, number one for me.
So you look at like all the mid lanes from like a worldwide perspective. So can you kind of tell me like kind of the differences between maybe mid laners from different regions? Do they focus on different things, or?
I think mid lane essentially is the same thing from region to region. I think regions have different styles as teams, but mid lane gets played. There's some more aggressive mid laners, and maybe they have different like niche picks. But overall, mid lane it's the same role. It gets played pretty much the same. Some people have different champion pools and stuff. I'd say some LPL mid laners maybe have a little bit more aggression, which means they can take more risks. Some of the LPL mids maybe have a little bit less aggression. They take less risks, and that's why sometimes they're a little bit less entertaining to watch. But yeah, I just think overall the leagues have different styles. The mid lane they're pretty much the same. Mid lane is the same from like, it's not the same, but it should be played the same, if you know what I mean.
The same old question. Do you think the mid laner is probably like the most important person in the team?
Oh, well, I mean, I'm a little bit biased, but yeah, sure. Mid laners are the most important in the team. Probably, I would say, yeah.
The spotlight.
I mean, we should have the spotlight. Yes, I think we should. We're in the middle of the map. Like, what can you do?
Yeah.
The game is played through the mid lane. It's won through the mid lane. So everyone should play towards us mid laners, I think. And maybe, play more towards us. But overall, I don't know. It depends on the meta. It depends on the meta, what role is the strongest. Sometimes jungle, top 80. I think we've been through it all, even support. So yeah. But mid lane, obviously, it's the rock in the mid lane. So yeah.
So you're very actually, I read that you're very interested and very familiar with the Asian LOL world, especially Korea and LPL, right? And you also played in the Korean ladder before, or are you currently on it too?
Am I what? Sorry.
Currently playing on the Korean server too.
No. At the moment, I've done 3 Korean trips in my past, and I've got my 4th coming up in a little bit less than a month. So I'll travel from Australia, where I live, over to Korea, just so I can play on the ladder and get a chance to verse some of these top tier pros and test my skills.
So who have you met on the ladder? Like famous
I've
players?
Met a lot of players actually. I've had some matchups against Faker. I've gone against Chovy, Doonby, Rookie. You know, a lot of the big names I've had a chance to verse in the mid lane, just in solo queue. Like if I get one win against them in solo queue, I like to brag. I'm like, oh, I've beaten Faker. Oh my God. But it's a 5-person game. So like I could just get a good team, get carried. And of course, I'm still going to say I beat Faker. Maybe I'm better than Faker, but really it's a bit of banter. And yeah, that's all it is.
Any fun stories that you can tell us?
The first time I played against Faker, he played Singed mid lane against me actually. So he picked Singed mid, which was completely off meta. Yeah. And I remember I had one opportunity to try and kill him. So I'm like, okay, I'm never going to get this chance again. So I tried to dive him under the turret. And because Singe has the flip, he just flipped me under the turret, ran away, and I died. He solo killed me. It's probably the most embarrassing solo death I've had. But I mean, hey, you've got to,
interesting.
You've got to go for it when it's there, right?
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Have you solo killed any like famous top mid laners?
I've solo killed Rookie. We got one against Yukao, Doonby. Maybe there's a couple more, but they're probably the biggest names from the LPL.
Cool. It's really cool.
Yeah.
All right, let me see. When you look at mid lane, what do you think is the most important thing that mid laners have to do overall in the game? Some mid laners like to roam, some mid laners like to like stay in lanes. And what do you think are their biggest job?
I mean, the biggest job I think is consistency. It doesn't matter how good you are. You know, if you have one game where you're popping off and the next game, you know, you're just completely running it down, you're never going to be a good mid laner. I like a mid laner that can be consistent every single game. They put themselves in a carry position, you know. Some players like maybe like Jackie Love, like he's so talented, but one game he's incredible, then the next game he just dies over and over. It's like, dude, you need to be consistent to be the best, in my opinion. And consistently good. So that's probably why I'd say Chovy is so good, just because of those CS scores. He can get consistent carry results like that. So Faker, obviously, also a big name that's been so consistent. But then you just get, I don't know, some players are just hit and miss where they pop off one game, they're bad the next, and it's just like, yeah, that's probably the biggest thing for me, consistency.
So we're kind of curious, why did you start doing LPL? Like what interests you in LPL that you want to do co-streaming with the region?
Well, essentially it's in the same like stream schedule as me, because it's like Korea and China are very similar like time zones. Yeah. So like the games were on at nighttime and I was streaming playing League, and I'm like, damn, it'd be pretty cool if I could watch these games with my viewers. And then the LPL hit me up. They said, hey, do you want to watch these games? So I'm like, hell yeah. So now we get to watch some of the top tier matchups. Like I don't do every game. I don't do every series. I kind of just pick and choose the big games that I want to watch. And yeah, when we get them, everyone shows up and we have a good time.
So you don't have to stay overnight doing those, right? So it's like good to your schedule. It's cool. Yeah. So, but you do also watch like European leagues too, or like.
I would say I watch the most LPL out of any league.
Oh, really? Oh.
I don't watch much of the European leagues. I watch the like the highlights, but just because of the time zones, I can't really watch them live. So it just takes so much bloody time to catch up with. So yeah, so I still try and keep relevant, like try and watch them all. But there's so many leagues these days. I can't watch every game from NA, Korea, LPL, LEC. You have to kind of pick and choose. Yeah, exactly. It sucks.
So do you keep in touch with the other LPL like co-streamers or like the LPL English casts and talk to them sometimes about the league?
Not really. I don't actually. I kind of just feel like I'm in my own little little slot. Like I know the commentators and the casters. I know like Hysterics and some of those boys. We talk back and forth sometimes, but mostly I just rock up and just watch the games and give a commentary over the top.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Do you think there's any, if you want to say something about LPL that's unique, what do you think it would be, like the most obvious kind of difference it has, like style or whatever it is?
LPL style. I think I like the LPL so much. There's like a quote from Mike Tyson where it's like everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. And I feel like LPL is best at that, where it's like any team from like around the world can have a plan, but then the LPL team will come and punch them in the face, do something crazy in the game, and their plan goes out the window. The aggression just completely rattles them. And I think that's why I like watching the LPL, just because they come in with such aggression. They are ready to just like, they kind of drop their hands in like boxing analogy, and they're just like, let's start swinging. And I just like that. I like the action. I like that they're able to take risks that maybe the LCK can't take, because they play a lot slower. They play a lot more methodical, which means it's a little bit more boring, in my opinion, to watch. I like to watch action, entertainment, and that's what the LPL gives you. They're ready to completely int or pop off, and they just want to play, you know?
I think the slogan this year for the new slogan for LPL was what? Crazy is our game. I think that pretty matches like their style very, very well.
Exactly.
Cool. Let me see. So in terms of we got the differences. Do you think anything is kind of similar? What stuff is similar, like same to the other regions, if you want to say that? Talk about that.
I mean, the metas are somewhat similar. There's differences a little bit in the metas, but I'd say just overall the LPL, there's just a lot more aggression, which means there's a lot more mistakes. You can sometimes I watch a top LPL game and I'm like, this looks like a silver game. Like it just looks very messy. I'm like, what are we watching? Everyone's like, what are they doing?
Yeah.
And that's what I love about it. You watch an LCK game and they're 400 CS at 30 minutes. They're all playing slow. It's like you watch it and you know it's a high level game, and even for like the LCS, sometimes it's kind of slow. Players are afraid to take risks. And yeah, I don't know. That's just why I like the LPL. They're just ready to take risks and ready to pop off.
Do you think that might also be kind of their weakness if like they're playing like in a competition, like they would make mistakes, and that could end up for them not having the chance to get the prize or the championship that they want?
I think so. I think for sure. Like a lot of the times, I mean, it depends what team. I think like EDG and the LPL are pretty slow and methodical, more of a Korean style. But some of the other teams that are ready to, like, I think is it V5 at the moment, like they're ready to just go so aggressive and so early that if a mistake happens against an LCK team, the LCK team will get the lead, and then they're not going to take those crazy fights. They're just going to slowly win out the game. And some of these LPL teams won't really know what to do because the enemy team aren't going to come in and just coin flip fights. They're just going to play it slow, play the map. So it's definitely their strength, but also definitely their weakness, I guess. But I mean, look, I hope they keep playing towards their strengths and don't convert to the boring LCK style, for sure.
So what if we just consider LCK and LPL, because it seems like you know a lot about these two regions. Like in terms of MSI, like who do you think? Because I heard people say that well, T1 is probably the strongest team at the moment, but I'm not sure about that. But what is your opinion about who will end up being on top? Like a team from LPL or a team from LCK?
Who do I think will win? I mean, I don't know. It depends. I think T1 look to be probably the best team in the world at the moment. They are just in fun. I don't think they've lost a game, right? I think they're undefeated still, which is just ridiculous. And then I think you're probably going to have maybe Gen G as well. Like I think with that roster with Chovy, they can potentially turn it on. But there's so much depth in the LPL that you can't ignore teams like LNG, V5, EDG definitely have the potential to switch on. RNG, there's so much depth in the LPL that you just don't really you just cannot count them out. There's so many top teams that it's just anyone's game. But I think the team to beat would be T1. Yeah.
I had a conversation with a coach before, and his analysis of this, he said LCK teams are more consistent, and they have kind of consistent way of playing, versus LPL, it's kind of like they have a higher ceiling and a lower ceiling, so you cannot like predict. You don't know. You don't know. For LPL, you don't know. You have to see if they make mistakes or not. If they can perform overly successful in a competition. But with LCK, it's probably like always going to be like you already know where they are.
So is it like 90? It's like 90 consistency, but then they're never going to get to that 100 unless they're going to push for the risk like the LPL takes.
Yeah.
But sometimes the LPL teams will have 100 game and they'll go down to like 40 or something. Like I think it was it FBX last year at Worlds? I was coming in thinking they're the favorites, and they just dropped out of groups. They just had the most embarrassing performance, and I'm just like, that's the LPL through and through, where it's kind of you could be the best team coming in, and then you could just put some bad games back to back, and it just falls apart. So yeah, it's their strength, but also their weakness, I guess.
Which could say it's more interesting, maybe.
Way more interesting. That's how I like it.
Yeah. Okay, let me see. Are you paying any special attention to LPL mid laners, like who they are, and why do you think they have potential, or why do you look at them in like a different? What do you look into them?
I think overall, like my favorite mid laner would be Doinby from the LPL. I think I've been following him since like day one. I played against him back in 2017, back when he was not so well known in the Western scene. I kind of said this guy is going to be bloody good. And he is. He's very good. His energy that he brings to the games and the team is just, I don't know, there's just an energy about him. I just love him as a player. But when it comes to like, probably a special mention also to Rookie, who are kind of like, you know, people thought maybe after the IG days, is he going to be just completely washed up? Is he going to be able to come back to, because there was a spot there where he was easily the best mid laner in the world.
Yeah.
And this split, he's having a bloody good year so far. He's having very good CS leads, dominating lanes and stuff. So shout out to Rookie. And then probably, who else? You got Fofo and Cream doing pretty well as well. I think Cream, I think he's only 18 or so. So he's probably the new fresh blood that's going to be the future of the LPL, as some of these older players like Doinby retire out. You'll have Cream coming in. He'll be, you know, he could have a very long career behind him. And then Fofo, just so consistent, plays very well, kind of flies under the radar, but I feel like he doesn't get enough hype. Fofo, I feel like he doesn't, as a lot of these other mid laners. But yeah, probably those are the 4 mid laners that I look to in the LPL at the moment.
So do you think the generation have switched, or do you think they're still like, everyone's still like on top of their game?
I think that the consensus that as like, because I'm an older player now, I'm 26. People are like, oh, you're too old. You can't play League at a high level anymore. But I think people like Faker, like Doinby, they're just coming, like even like Bjergsen and stuff, you know, I feel like as you get older, people's consensus is going to drop off. But I feel like if you stay motivated and hungry, I feel like these older players can kick it with the younger players and use their wisdom and their knowledge to kind of beat them out. A lot of these younger players will have the mechanics, maybe they can get the 1v1s, but at the end of the day, they need to have the composure and the experience in the games that these experienced players bring. I just feel like it's so important, especially when you go to Worlds. A lot of the younger players get nervous. They can't bring the mechanics. And that's where players like Faker really show up and take the wins.
So if I ask you to pick 5 best mid laners at the moment, who would they be?
That's so hard to do. 5 best mid laners.
Yeah.
I think I'd have to put Chovy as my number one. Chovy would be my number one. Pro mid laners, can they be solo queue players?
Sure.
Okay, I'm just trying to think. I do look up to a player called Dopa. It's a pretty big Korean player, but I'm just trying to think if I put him on my top 5. Okay, so Chovy number 1, definitely. Number 2 and 3, look. It's so hard to do. Maybe Faker, maybe Showmaker. I think that BDD still has form. That's just thinking from the LCK. And then the LPL, like, Jesus, there's so much talent in the LPL. It's just ridiculous. Like, far out. Definitely Doinby. You'd have to put Doinby up there somewhere. I'd probably put Rookie at the moment in great form. I think Zhao, who's making a bit of a comeback, playing very well from the top to mid transition. Fofo, very strong. But when it comes to the top 5, I don't know if I can specifically.
You came up with like 10 people.
I know. I can't.
It's okay.
They're so good. It's just like, I feel like I'm doing them, a disservice by putting them in order. They're all good, but then Chovy gets the number 1 spot, and the rest can fight for the however many mid laners I named.
I just thought of a question because you played in the Korean server a lot, right? So I heard people say that pro gamers are like on another level versus like solo queues.
Yeah.
Or just not pro gamers. They're just having fun. But even though they're on top of the ladder, so what is your opinion on that?
On like the next level that pro players have?
Yeah. So do you think that exists, or do you think that people that play on the top, like rank 1, rank 2, in the normal games are at the same level as pro gamers?
I mean, I just think pro players bring a different aspect. I always thought pro players were like just a level above. But after playing solo queue in Korea a lot of the times against some of the challengers in Korea who I didn't know, maybe they were pros, I didn't know, but some of the freakiest and best players I met in Korean solo queue were people who were unknown, just random players that I didn't really know. So maybe they could have been pros with different aliases that I didn't really recognize, but I don't know. I guess when you go against a pro, I guess when you go against a pro player, they play very standard. They play very kind of predictable. But then there's a lot of solo queue players who play like their one tricks of some random champion, and you're just like, they bring out the most ridiculous mechanics, and you're like, I didn't even know that champion could do that because they've got 10,000 games on it. So I mean, look, the pro players are great, but the one tricks, in my opinion, I like versing them more just because they play
so all
one champion for their whole life. Yeah, exactly.
And they're really, really, really good at them. Like,
well, you can't beat them because they've just played too much on that champion.
But they can only play one champion.
They can only play one champion, exactly. Just ban that out and then you're fine.
Cool. Do you have any questions or shout out to any like LPL players? We can maybe ask them those questions for you, or
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I have any shout outs. Just good luck to the LPL, I guess, at Worlds and MSI this year. Looking to see, hopefully bring that aggression, bring those crazy fun games is all I can say. Because our spectators love watching them.
Do you have any questions for any LPL players, mid laners that you want to ask?
A question that I want to ask. Nothing off the top of my head. Hey, I'd have to really think about it.
Okay. You can send it over to me later if you want.
Yeah, I actually will do that. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right. Let's see. So some extra questions. We're kind of interested because we talked with TJ, the LPL English side of things before this interview. So we they recommended us to interview you actually. So we're kind of interested to know how you got to know them. So they just sent over like an invitation to do co-streaming.
Yeah, they just sent it. They just sent a message, and then they just said, "Hey man, are you interested in the LPL?" I'm like, yes. Definitely. He's like,
so is your fame, Matt? It was your fame. They're interested in your fame.
Exactly. I was super lucky.
Yeah.
And they're just like, hey, I mean, if you're interested, and I'm just took it, just went, yes, I'll go for it. I will definitely be very interested in that.
Okay. When you look at LPL streams, do you feel like there's any language barrier, or do you think the shoutcasters or the English programs are already enough for you to understand the game?
Oh, I think it's fine. Like I just watch the English broadcasters, and they'll just do their English commentary, and the translators for the interviews are fine for me. I feel like it's great.
Awesome.
I feel like the language barrier, I don't really feel it at all.
Okay. That's cool. So that's the end of the interview. Thank you so much for coming and talking with me.
My pleasure. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You have anything else you want to say?
That's about it. Thank you for the interview. I appreciate it. It's been good. Throwing a little bit of chat around the LPL and all the global leagues. It's been good.
Hopefully I get to meet you one day in person.
We will, I'm sure.
Yeah, hopefully.
One of the events. Yeah.
Are you ever going to come to China anytime, maybe in the future?
I hope so. I hope so.
Okay.
I'll try and organize it. Like, it's so hard. I want to play in the Chinese super server at some point. Because they've got like they have a special server in China where like the best players play.
Yeah.
A lot of the LPL players go there. So hopefully I can get an account there and play, but with COVID and all the restrictions and stuff, it's kind of hard to plan out a lot of trips at once, but one day I'll get there.
How did you get a Korean server account? Because when I was playing, I had to use my alien resident card because I have to have a job.
Yep.
And I have to get a card that represents me. I have a phone number, and they want all of those stuff for me to get an account.
It's hard to get accounts. Yeah. I have to apply. I kind of have to apply through Riot, and they'll reach out and be like, there's this streamer, he wants to play. He'll be on his best behavior, which I always am, try to be. And then, I get the account, and then I play on it. And then when I leave, they delete the account. It's kind of like a loaned account.
That's cool. Awesome. It's kind of the same in LPL. Like, I don't get the special access like you, so I have to do all that.
Oh, I don't hook you up. What is this?
Yeah, I know. I will tell them.
This is your
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Awesome.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate it. All right. See you later.